So this is a hot button issue here in Korea. One that gets people feeling pretty upset. And it's pension reform. The pension system here in Korea has a lot of problems, a whole lot of problems. When you look at the pension system here in South Korea, you see a system that essentially is not doing the job it set out to do. Um, Korea has many facets of problem here. Let's start with the incredibly high aging population. You have uh, uh, low contributions into the system in and of itself. You have like multiple different like pension systems for multiple different sectors. It is a system that genuinely needs work. And a hot button issue that the politicians really don't want to deal with, but it's an issue that needs to be dealt with. And again, I'm going to say this again. I know I've said it many times today, but this administration seems risk adverse. They seem like they don't want to take on a lot of issues that need radical change. And this is one of those things that need radical change. So, what am I talking about? What do I mean by the system has issues? Well, let's just start with one thing. Everyone knows that Korea has a birth crisis, right? Birth rate crisis, meaning there are not enough babies being born to offset the people that are dying. So, why should you care about that? I had a Korean friend of mine, who was like, the country getting smaller is not a big deal. I was like, well, that's not actually how that works. Let's think about this. If there are less people working, that means there are less people making the economy move, right? Less money being produced. Less people working, less people driving the economy. But those same people who are not working are being subsidized by the government, meaning the government has to pay those people every 2 weeks, even though they're no longer working, they're no longer adding to the economy. That is a strain not on the old people, but that is a strain on us younger people because we are having to pay to subsidize them. Now, let's be clear. The Korean system, as it stands, doesn't even do that well because it doesn't even pay out enough in pension to subsidize old people to have decent living standards, which means structurally, it doesn't pay for old people to have a nice retirement. There is the pension system here in Korea. It's only paid up till 2055, and so they have been like kind of eating at the edges, trying to fix little things here and there, but it's only paid up till 2055. So young people feel that, well, if it's only paid up to 2055, for me, I'll be 57, 58 in 2055. I wouldn't be old enough to retire. There's not going to be a system there for me to utilize. You catch where you're starting to see where the problems lie. Well, the Democratic Party has started to in a very small way, open the door to go and say, hey, all right, we have to figure out what is going on here in terms of pension reform and how do we do it. But before I want to get into that, I want to talk about another thing that is specifically interesting to the Korean system and how they have how this whole system has fallen apart. Is not even everyone's not even built or everyone's not even bought into this same retirement pension. So what do I mean by that? In the United States, everyone gets Social Security or everyone pays into Social Security. Doesn't matter the job, doesn't matter what you're doing. Everyone pays. If you work, even if you're a citizen or non-citizen, everyone pays into Social Security. Not everyone gets Social Security, but everyone pays into that system. That way, there's one system, one big tub of money, so that when you retire, you get paid out. In Korea, there are multiple systems. There's the National Pension Service, that's for the general public. There's the government employees pensions, that's for people who work for the government employees. And then there's the military pension system, and then private school teachers pensions. I just listed 4 different pension systems. They're not working together, they're not homogenous. And so that makes it even harder to pay out. Now, older people, I'm gonna put on my old man hat for a bit and kind of give the reality for them. They're looking at this system and they go, don't touch it. Don't touch it, because I already don't get a lot as it is. And if you're going to try to maintain the system and maintain it for years and years, you're going to cut so that it can stretch out more. And I already don't make enough. There's a statistic out there that people over the age of 65, only 40% of them are, or I'm sorry, 40% of them are living in poverty. 40% of the people living over the age of 65 are living in poverty. That is stunning. That is problematic. That is a system that has failed to do the job it set out to do. It needs radical reform to change that. Not incrementalism, radical reform to change that. What do I believe needs to happen? I think they need to not do away with it, but to reboot this as if you get a job, everyone pays into one system, the same system, and everyone gets paid out a livable wage. What is that going to require? Well, that's going to require an increase in the retirement age. I know what you're saying. Well, why should we increase the retirement age? The reality on the ground here is this. The average life expectancy here in Korea is about 83 years old. That means that where the system stands today, that people over the age of 63 are being subsidized for the next 30 years. So wait, you work for X amount of years and then you get subsidized for another 30. It's not even is that doable, but actually, yeah, is that doable? Is that financially viable for a younger population, which is smaller than the elderly population, like 2 to 1? It is unsustainable. So I think increasing the retirement age does make sense. However, I also believe that they need to increase the pay into the system. Within OECD countries, Korea pays some of the lowest rates in pension, at a split rate of 9% between the employer and the employee. What's that? 4.5% on each end. And so you're going to have to increase taxes, something governments don't like to do because there's immediate effects on the individual. Purchasing power goes down, things of that nature. They don't want to do that. But I know, looking at the numbers, looking at the math, this is something they're going to have to do. They're going to have to invest more in the pension system. That is the only way the pension system becomes viable and works for everyone. Yeah, maybe we're not paying for 30 years of your retirement. Maybe we're paying for 20 years of your retirement. But guess what? You invested a lot of money for 20 years, 30 years of your work career, your 40 years in your work career. Now you're getting 20 years. Go travel the world. Go take a vacation. This is something that has to be radically changed. This is something that cannot just be where the government tinkers with it. And my confidence in that is kind of on the floor. And the reason I say that, why do I say that? And there's a good reason. I say that because I look at this. This is from nope, I'm not even gonna try it. I'm gonna butcher it. Korea's Democrats consider gradually extending requirement age to 65 by 2041. The plan would increase the current statutory retirement age from 60 by 1 year every 3 years starting in 2029. So currently the retirement age is 60 and the average life expectancy is 83, meaning people live to be longer than that. I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy. Take a look at this. I thought this part was important. Since the retirement age extension could primarily benefit older workers in relatively stable public sector jobs, the issue could create conflict not only between generations, but also among older workers themselves. For these reasons, the Democratic Party has remained cautious, saying that the current proposal under review is not its official position, but a proposal meant to facilitate dialogue between labor and management. Come on, guys. Come on. You're essentially seeing the ground that you are afraid to tackle this issue. You are terrified to tackle this issue. Guys, it's not law. It's just a dialogue. Well, isn't that any proposal? Is it just dialogue to see what the general public feels about this? Maybe get some buy-in. Maybe do a campaign. Maybe listen to what people think. This to me, this to me kind of seals the deal with the type of party that we are seeing. That the Democratic Party is playing it safe. They're maintaining their centrism. Play it safe. Don't rock the boat too much. Yeah, there are certain things that they have ideological commitments to, but they don't want to really rock the boat. They don't want to really create too much discourse. They want to kind of narrowly go down lanes that make it easy for them. Well, the reality is this problem isn't an easy problem. It's going to be a hard problem to solve, and they don't want to tackle it. They really don't want to, but they kind of have to. And if they don't go in with a competent plan, I'm not saying you even got to do what I was theorizing, but you need to have a competent plan. And it doesn't really look like they have one. It looks like they just want to push the age up, because if you push the age up, it's not my problem anymore. I don't know, guys. This is one that's interesting. I'm going to keep my eyes on it, see how this goes. Hey, they could prove me wrong. They could prove me wrong. Tomorrow they could come out and announce, hey, we have this comprehensive plan that's going to radically reform the pension system and ensure that both young people and old people buy out on it. I think it's unlikely, but we will see. We will see. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked that video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And if you have a comment, go ahead and leave it down there in the comments. Thank you. See you in the next one.